He rushed into the hospital to save a dying child. But when his rare blood type was the only match, doctors ran a DNA test behind his back. And the result? The ruthless Mafia boss discovered the child he saved was his own. But the mother, the woman he betrayed, is now the one running from his enemies. The night air smelled like burnt metal and gunpowder. Lucas Hale shoved open the emergency door with his shoulder. His injured soldier hung limp against him. Blood dripped in a steady rhythm across the shiny hospital floor. Doctors gasped when they recognized him. Even in chaos, his name carried weight and danger. Lucas ignored the whispers. He didn't care who stared. He only cared that his man was breathing. Barely. "Help him," Lucas ordered, voice sharp as broken glass. A nurse rushed forward, fear and duty fighting in her eyes. She wheeled the soldier away, shouting codes Lucas didn't bother deciphering. He leaned on the counter to sign the emergency paperwork. His sleeve was soaked with someone else's blood. His pulse hammered through his veins. He wanted this night over until he heard it. A surgeon burst through a set of double doors, panic twisting his words. "Get me a match now. This child is fading." Lucas didn't look up at first. Hospitals were full of tragedies. This wasn't his business. Then he heard the rest. A B negative, no donors available. His hand froze. The pen slipped from his fingers. The clipboard nearly clattered to the ground. A B negative, a unicorn blood type, a ghost in the system. Barely anyone had it, except him. Lucas turned slowly, the world narrowing to the frantic doctor. "How fast is the kid crashing?" he asked, though he didn't know why he cared. "Minutes," the surgeon exclaimed. "We won't make it without a donor." Lucas's chest tightened. His mind warned him to walk away, to let someone else handle this. It wasn't his fight, nothing to do with him. But his mouth moved before thought caught up. "I'll donate." The room snapped silent. The nurse closest to him blinked in disbelief. You're AB negative?" Lucas nodded once. His eyes were cold, unwavering. "Prep whatever you need. Now." His heart never raced, even in gunfights, even in ambushes, even when facing death. But now, a strange tension pulled at him, a whisper of something he couldn't identify. Two nurses rushed him toward the surgical prep room. One cut open his sleeve. Another tightened the blood pressure cuff. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The air tasted like antiseptic and fear. Lucas didn't ask who the child was. He didn't ask if the case was hopeless. He'd never been a man to hesitate when someone was dying in front of him, even if he pretended otherwise. But fate had plans tonight. As the gurney rolled through the corridor, he caught a glimpse of movement in his peripheral vision. A shadow, a silhouette, a familiar posture. He turned his head, and the world stopped. Aurora Blake stood at the far end of the hallway, her hands pressed to her mouth, her trembling shoulders rising and falling with every broken breath. Her eyes lifted. Their gazes collided like two storms meeting. Her face lost all color, as if she'd seen a ghost, as if he was the ghost. Lucas felt something crack inside him, a quiet, painful shatter. He hadn't seen her in years. Not since the night he'd chosen his empire over her. Not since the night he'd watched her walk away, carrying tears he caused. She looked older now, sharper, stronger. But there was something else too. Something raw. Something grieving. "Aurora," he breathed. The nurses didn't pause the wheel. They didn't care about the past unraveling in front of them. They didn't see the way Lucas's stare clung to her like a starving man. They simply pushed him along, the stretcher sliding toward the surgical unit. Aurora took one step toward him, just one, but her knees nearly buckled. He reached out blindly, as if instinct could bridge 6 years of silence. Before either of them could speak, the anesthesiologist placed a mask over Lucas's face. Count down from 10. Lucas ignored the instruction. His gaze locked onto Aurora until the very last second, until the hallway blurred, until her image swam into darkness. Her lips moved before he faded completely. He didn't hear the words. He only saw the tremble. The world dimmed. His heartbeat slowed. And then, just as the anesthesia swallowed him whole, a murmured voice drifted into the fading space around him. A doctor. Unaware, Lucas could still hear. Unaware, the words would shatter everything. His DNA matches the donor. The darkness slammed shut. Lucas Hale donated blood to save a dying child. But the last words he heard, before unconsciousness, revealed a truth he was never meant to discover. The child whose life he just saved is biologically his, and the mother standing outside his operating room is the woman he betrayed. The first thing Lucas feels is noise. Soft, steady, mechanical noise. A beeping that keeps time with the pulse hammering in his neck. His eyes crack open to a white ceiling and a light too bright for comfort. The room smells of antiseptic and silence. A silence thicker than pain. He drags in a breath. The world anchors itself. His vision clears. Then he sees her. Aurora sits in the corner like a sculpture carved from regret. Arms crossed, back straight, jaw tight enough to splinter bone. Not crying, not shaking, just closed. Like a door he no longer owns the right to open. Her stare slices through him. 1,000 memories chase through his mind. Warm skin, stolen nights, whispered promises. And then the night he ruined everything. He tries to speak, but she beats him to it. 4 cold words. You weren't supposed to know. No greeting. No relief that he's alive after donating blood. No gratitude that he saved a life. Just a truth she had buried deep. Lucas pushes himself upright. His muscles burn, but he doesn't care. He sits forward, elbows on knees, breathing slowly because the air feels too heavy. He's mine, Lucas says. A statement, not a question. His voice is rough, unsteady, something rare. Aurora doesn't look away. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't even try to lie. You chose the throne over us, she says quietly. I chose to survive without you. Her tone is steady, controlled, but her fingers tremble where they grip her arms. A small detail, but Lucas sees everything. He always did. The silence between them twists into something sharp. Lucas wants to explode. He wants to demand why she hid the truth, why she disappeared, why she raised his son without him, why she didn't call, why she didn't trust him. But rage feels too small compared to the ache settling in his chest. All he can manage is, what's his name? Aurora doesn't answer right away. Her eyes drop to her lap. Her throat moves in a tight swallow. Finally, a whisper. Liam. The name hits him hard enough to steal breath. Simple, soft, but heavy with a life he never knew. Liam. His son. 6 years of milestones he missed. First words, first steps, first laugh. Lucas stares down at his hands. Calloused, scarred, built for violence, not fatherhood. He doesn't know how to process any of this. He doesn't know where to begin, but he wants to. He opens his mouth to speak, to ask 100 questions, but the door slams open before he can get a single word out. 2 hospital security guards rush in, faces pale with urgency. Ms. Blake, one says, breathless, your room was breached. Aurora shoots to her feet so fast, her chair rattles. What do you mean breached? The guard exchanges a grim look with his partner. Someone tried to reach the child. Aurora's entire body goes rigid. Her breath catches. Fear, the kind she rarely shows, flares in her eyes. Lucas's mind snaps into focus. Every instinct he's ever honed surges forward. He stands, despite the dizziness clawing at him. "Show me," Aurora demands. "No," Lucas says, voice suddenly a blade. "They weren't after your room." Aurora spins toward him, fury rising. "What are you implying?" Lucas steps closer, gaze locked on hers, deadly calm settling across his features. "If someone breached the hospital for him," Lucas says, "then they know exactly who the child belongs to." Aurora's face tightens. Her heartbeat stutters. She refuses to let the fear show. But she knows. He knows. Trouble didn't follow Aurora. It followed him. Lucas clenches his fists. His pulse spikes, not from exertion, but from the realization unraveling in front of him. Someone is hunting the boy. Someone is hunting a child who carries his blood. Someone who wants leverage, revenge, power, or destruction. Aurora tries to steady her breathing, but terror lingers in her eyes. "You think your world is reaching into mine?" she whispers. Lucas steps closer until there is barely a breath between them. "No," he says, voice low, lethal. "It's not reaching." His jaw tightens. "It's already here." Aurora's face drains of color. Lucas looks at the guards. "Lock this entire floor down." "Yes, sir." He turns back to Aurora. "You need protection." Her shoulders lift defensively. "I don't need—" Lucas cuts her off with a glare so cold it silences her. "This isn't about you," he says. "It's about Liam." The name crushes her resistance. He watches the walls she built begin to fracture. Lucas lowers his voice. "Someone tried to get to him, and they will try again." Aurora's breath trembles. Lucas's gaze darkens. "And they're not after your son," he adds. Aurora's eyes widen. "Then who?" Lucas answers before she finishes. "They're after me." Silence crashes across the room like a tidal wave. Heavy, deadly, real. Aurora stares at him, horrified, angry, terrified. "You brought danger to my child," she whispers. Lucas doesn't deny it. He can't. But then he says something that makes the room freeze. "No." His voice drops to a terrifying calm. "I didn't bring danger to him." He steps forward, eyes locked on hers. "Someone is targeting him. To get to me." Aurora's breath collapses. She grips the bedrail to stay upright. "Lucas." He raises a hand. "Don't worry." His expression turns cold enough to kill. "They want a war? A beat. They'll get one." Before Aurora can respond, the overhead speakers crackle. A nurse's panicked voice echoes through the hall. "Code red. The child's room is compromised. We have an intruder on the pediatric floor." Aurora's scream rips through her throat. And Lucas is already running. Someone has reached Liam. The hunt has begun. The night was thick with tension. Rain-slicked streets reflected the neon glow of emergency vehicles outside the hospital. Aurora's heels clicked against the wet pavement, a rhythm that seemed to echo her racing heartbeat. Every step was calculated, but each one felt heavier than the last. Lucas trailed behind, eyes scanning the rooftops, alleys, and shadows. He ignored the protests of his men. No one knew danger like he did. No one could read the signs of a sniper like he could, and tonight the signs were screaming. Aurora glanced at him, her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't say a word. She had learned long ago that arguing with Lucas in moments like these was pointless. He was danger incarnate, and he had a way of predicting violence before it even happened. The heavy rain soaked through their jackets, chilling them to the bone. Lucas ignored it. His eyes were fixed, unblinking, scanning every angle. A glint on a rooftop caught the corner of his vision, almost too subtle to notice. A reflection, a flash, a whisper of movement. Time slowed. Lucas's jaw tightened. His mind cataloged every possible trajectory, every possible escape, every angle the bullet could come from. Aurora paused, mid-step. Something in the air changed. A subtle pressure, a prelude to chaos. Her instincts screamed, but her body hadn't moved yet. Then Lucas acted. A rough hand grabbed her arm, yanking her low. His reflexes faster than thought. The world seemed to tilt. Slow motion. As the bullet tore through the air, it slammed into the pavement where she had just stood. Concrete splintered. Rain hissed as the hot metal collided with wet stone. A scream ripped from Aurora's throat, high and raw, before she could swallow it. Lucas didn't flinch. Never did. Never would. His eyes never left the skyline. He knew instinctively that this was no random act. This was deliberate, calculated, targeted. "This isn't random," he said, voice low and sharp, slicing through the patter of rain. "Someone knows exactly who your son is." Aurora's eyes widened, not with fear, not with shock, but with dawning realization. Her lips parted slightly, caught between denial and terror. "They," she began, voice trembling. "They weren't after Liam tonight, were they?" Lucas's gaze shifted toward her, piercing, unwavering. "You were," he said. Her breath caught in her chest. A chill ran down her spine, colder than the night air. Her hands gripped his coat as if it could anchor her to reality. Her mind raced. Every scenario she'd imagined, every fear she had suppressed, now clawed its way to the surface. She thought the danger was only for Liam. She had never considered herself as the target. Yet here it was, the terrifying truth. Lucas's eyes flicked back to the rooftops. Shadows shifted. Figures moved, but none matched the killer he'd been trained to see. The bullet hadn't come from the building across the street. It had been angled, perfect, deadly. Aurora's lips trembled as she spoke again. You saved me." Lucas didn't respond. He never did words when the night was this alive. Movement, preparation, and instinct spoke louder than any apology. He pulled her closer to the wall, keeping her low. Her soaked hair stuck to her forehead. His hand lingered briefly at the small of her back, steady, protective, unyielding. The sound of distant sirens and shouted commands from guards filled the air, but Lucas's focus didn't waver. Every muscle tensed, prepared to strike, counter, and neutralize. Aurora's mind refused to calm. Her son, her child was safe, yes, but only for now. The thought that she could have been taken, instead, clawed at her chest. Guilt mingled with fear. Her heartbeat thundered so loud it almost drowned out the rain. Lucas lowered his head slightly. "You think it was about your son?" He let the words hang, letting the silence press against her like a physical force. Aurora shook her head, eyes wide. I thought," her voice faltered, "I thought Liam was the target." Lucas's stare cut across the rain-soaked street, landing back on her. "No," he said slowly, each word deliberate. "You were." Aurora's stomach dropped. Every nerve screamed danger. Her throat felt raw from unspent screams. The realization slammed into her with the weight of a sledgehammer. Lucas assessed their surroundings with precision. The city at night became a chessboard. Every shadow a potential enemy. Every movement a threat. The bullet that missed by inches was a warning, a declaration. Someone wanted to send a message, and they were close. Aurora's hands tightened around his coat. Her knuckles went white. Her voice, barely a whisper, trembling. Why me?" Lucas's jaw set. He exhaled slowly. "I'm going to find out," he said. "Whoever did this will regret it." His words carried a weight beyond threats. It was a promise, a vow etched into the bone of the night itself. Aurora's mind struggled to reconcile the man before her with the man from her past, the man who had abandoned her, the man who had chosen power over her, and now, the man who was ready to risk everything for her life. Rain fell heavier. The city felt alive with danger. Neon lights blurred across the puddles, creating a distorted world of shadows and color. Lucas scanned the rooftops, street corners, and every possible escape route. Each detail was cataloged, stored, analyzed. Nothing escaped him. Not a flicker, not a sound, not a shadow. Aurora's gaze followed his every movement. She wanted to run, to scream, to fight. Instead, she trusted him, for the first time in years. The moment stretched, taut, electric, and then movement. A figure flitting across the roofline, almost invisible against the dark sky. A silhouette, swift, purposeful. Lucas's eyes narrowed. He didn't need to see the face. He knew instinctively. The threat hadn't gone away. It had only begun. Aurora felt the cold press of fear on her chest. Her son, her own life, her choice to come back. All of it led to this instant. Lucas crouched slightly, preparing for the next strike. "You need to move," he said quietly. "Stay low. Follow me." Aurora nodded, though her mind screamed questions. Her body obeyed. She had no choice. She had no option. A distant shot rang out. A warning. Close. Almost intimate in its proximity. Closer than either of them had anticipated. Lucas's eyes flicked to her again. "Stay behind me." The world seemed to hold its breath. Even the rain paused. Even the city itself seemed to acknowledge the predator in their midst. Aurora swallowed hard. Her gaze met his, and for the first time, she saw the full weight of the man he had become. Ruthless, calculated, protective, and she realized tonight wasn't about Liam. Tonight wasn't about survival alone. Tonight was about them. The shadows shifted again. The faintest movement. A threat approaching fast. Closer than they could imagine. Lucas tensed, muscles coiled like steel. Aurora's pulse raced in tandem with his. The bullet that missed had been just the beginning. From a nearby rooftop, a faint glint reflects in Lucas's eyes. A second bullet streaks through the rain. Closer this time. It's aimed with deadly precision. And this time, it's not going to miss. The night wrapped the city in shadows, heavy and suffocating. Aurora clutched Liam's small hand as she followed the convoy. Every streetlight flickered like a warning, a pulse of danger hiding in the dark. Rain had turned the roads into slick mirrors, reflecting the neon chaos of emergency vehicles that still patrolled the area. Lucas's black SUV led the way, his expression unreadable, eyes scanning every alley and rooftop. Every muscle was coiled, every sense alert. He didn't speak, but the silence carried a weight Aurora could feel pressing against her chest. She watched him from the corner of her eye. The man who had abandoned her years ago. The man who could have been everything. And yet, the man who now carried a fierceness she hadn't seen before. Liam, still pale from the hospital, nestled against her side. His small fingers clenched her coat. He looked up at her, eyes wide, innocent, yet brimming with curiosity. "Mom," he whispered. "Who is he?" Aurora froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer immediately. Lucas's voice, soft and deliberate, broke the tension. "Someone who should have been here sooner," he said. Aurora stiffened. His words carried a sincerity she hadn't heard in years. No arrogance, no cold distance, just a raw, unexpected honesty. Liam tilted his head. He didn't understand, not fully, but he felt the calm in Lucas's voice. Aurora's chest tightened. She wanted to retreat, to protect Liam from the complicated truth of Lucas's presence, to To shield him from the storm she still saw in Lucas's eyes. Lucas didn't step back. He let his gaze meet hers, unflinching, unapologetic. Yet there was something else in that stare, something that spoke of regret, of pain, of promises broken. "You hid him to protect him," Lucas said quietly, each word deliberate. "I get that. But now you don't have to do this alone." Aurora swallowed hard. Her mind flashed with memories of her life since he left. The nights she cried herself to sleep. The moments she doubted her strength. The sleepless hours spent raising Liam alone. Her fingers tightened around Liam's hand. She wanted to test him, to see if he still had the same ruthlessness that had made him so dangerous before. But the look in his eyes told her otherwise. This was not the boy she feared. This was a man who had changed. Or maybe, a man who had been waiting for this moment to show who he truly was. The safe house door opened with a quiet click. They stepped inside. Aurora's breath caught in her throat. The place was familiar, hauntingly familiar. Every shadow, every corner, every faint echo of the past whispered memories of a life that could have been. It was meant to be theirs. Years ago, before Lucas chose power over love, before he walked away from her and Liam. The house smelled of polished wood and leather, of old memories and colder intentions. The walls seemed to hum with ghosts, silent observers of mistakes and choices that couldn't be undone. Liam took a tentative step forward, his small hand still in Aurora's grip. The boy's curiosity overcame his weakness. He scanned the room with wide eyes. "Mom, this is big," he said softly. "Who is he?" Aurora looked at Lucas. For the first time in years, she didn't have a quick retort. She didn't have a shield of anger. She only had the raw ache of reality pressing in. Lucas stepped forward slowly. His presence filled the room. Not threatening, but impossible to ignore. "Someone who should have been here sooner," he repeated gently. Aurora's gaze flicked to him. Every muscle in her body wanted to flee, to run back to safety, to protect Liam from the man who had abandoned them. But something held her, something dangerous, something she didn't want to name. Lucas's eyes softened. A crack in his armor, a hint of the man who had loved her once, and perhaps still did in ways unspoken. "You don't have to hide him anymore," he said. "You don't have to face this alone." Aurora's hands tightened around Liam, her voice barely audible. I don't know if I can trust you." Lucas took a measured step closer. "Trust isn't given," he said quietly. "It's earned, and I intend to earn it. For him, for you." The words hit harder than any bullet. Aurora's chest constricted. For a moment, the safe house felt like the only place in the world where time could stop, where choices didn't matter, where past mistakes were suspended in a fragile, temporary silence. Liam wandered closer to Lucas, curiosity outweighing fear. He reached out a tentative hand. Lucas knelt, careful not to scare him. The boy's fingers brushed against his. Lucas didn't speak. He didn't need to. The small connection said everything. Aurora watched, torn between fear, hope, and something she refused to name. The child was safe, for now, but the storm wasn't over. Outside, the rain lashed against the windows. The city felt alive with menace. Every shadow promised danger. Every silent footstep whispered threat. Lucas rose to his full height. His eyes swept the room, checking the perimeter without moving. Aurora noticed, though she didn't speak. It was the same vigilance, the same intensity she had seen before, but now tempered with something different, something that made her uneasy, something that hinted at a plan she didn't understand yet. "I'll make sure he stays safe," Lucas said quietly. You don't have to do it alone. Aurora's lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't know if she could believe him. But for the first time, she didn't walk away. The silence was broken by a subtle noise from outside. A faint click, a whisper of movement that made her pulse spike. Lucas froze instantly. Aurora felt it before she understood it. The air shifted. The shadows outside the windows weren't empty. Someone was watching. Someone had followed them. His hand instinctively moved toward the hidden gun at his waist. Every muscle coiled. Every instinct screamed. Aurora's breath caught. The ghosts in the safe house seemed to lean closer, silent witnesses to what was coming. Lucas's eyes darkened. The protective mask he always wore fell into place. No hesitation, no mercy. "This place isn't as safe as we thought," he muttered. Aurora looked at him, finally understanding. The past wasn't done with them. The enemy wasn't done either. The night wasn't finished. The safe house, full of ghosts and memories, now felt like a cage. Every echo hinted at danger. Every shadow seemed alive. Liam tugged at Aurora's sleeve. "Mom, what's happening?" His small voice broke through the tension, innocent and trusting. Aurora pulled him close. "Nothing," she whispered, but even she didn't believe it. Lucas moved toward the window, eyes scanning the rooftops. A subtle movement, a figure perched silently, watching, waiting. He straightened, voice cold and lethal. "They found us." Aurora's heart dropped. Liam clung to her tighter. Lucas turned toward them, eyes blazing. "Get ready," he said. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." A single gunshot echoes from the distance, followed by a second, closer. The shadows outside the safe house tremble. Someone knows their exact location. And tonight, the enemy isn't leaving empty-handed. The safe house was silent, except for the hum of the surveillance monitors. Raindrops still pelted the windows outside, drumming a rhythm that matched Lucas's tense heartbeat. Aurora sat on the edge of the couch, arms wrapped around Liam, who clutched a blanket to his chest. The boy's eyes were wide, uncomprehending, yet aware of the unease pressing down on the room. Lucas leaned over the bank of monitors, eyes scanning every frame with precision. Each image a potential clue, each movement a possible threat. He rarely blinked. Every second mattered. A quiet beep signaled a new file had arrived. Security footage from the hospital. The file name alone made his pulse spike. Lucas didn't speak. He simply inserted the drive and watched. The screen flickered, revealing the familiar hallway of Aurora's hospital floor. Footsteps echoed softly in the tiled corridor. A man appeared in the footage, masked, silent, calculated. The man moved with a predator's grace, each step deliberate, each motion avoiding cameras as though he'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. Lucas's jaw tightened. A cold wind of realization cut through him. "One of ours," he muttered under his breath. This was an inside job. One of his lieutenants, a shadow of a man leaning against the wall, nodded. Someone knew exactly where she'd be, the man whispered, and the security systems, disabled long enough to make it happen. Lucas exhaled slowly, not out of relief, but calculation. A traitor in his empire was more dangerous than any rival gang. Someone who knew everything. Someone who knew about Aurora. Someone who knew about Liam. His eyes returned to the screen. The masked figure paused briefly outside Aurora's room. Then, he moved with precision toward the window overlooking the city. Lucas froze. The footage revealed a truth even darker than betrayal. The attacker hadn't targeted Aurora first. His first aim had been the nursery. Liam's room, the boy's small bed, the faint silhouette of his tiny body sleeping unaware, had been the first target. The thought hit Lucas like a punch to the chest. Aurora gasped softly. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "Lucas, if someone's after Liam," she began, her voice trembling. Lucas didn't need her to finish. He already knew. "They know he's my heir," he said, voice low and lethal. "Everything I am, they want to take it through him." Aurora's eyes widened. Fear and anger warred within her. She thought they were safe inside the safe house. She thought moving Liam out of the hospital was enough. But this was bigger. Far bigger. Lucas turned from the monitor, eyes blazing with controlled fury. The room felt suddenly smaller, tighter, as though the walls themselves were aware of the betrayal. He moved toward Aurora, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder, not for comfort, for warning. "Someone in my organization betrayed me," he said. "Someone trusted enough to know about Liam and you. And now, they're using that against us." Aurora's lips parted, but no words came. Fear had stolen them all. Lucas's gaze returned to the screen. The masked man was almost a ghost. Too precise, too careful. Someone trained. Someone who knew the inner workings of the hospital. Someone who knew Lucas would be the first to react. His mind raced through possibilities. Who could know this? Who would risk everything to get to him through his child? Aurora stiffened. Her voice quivered despite herself. They want him because he's yours?" Lucas didn't answer at first. His mind replayed the footage, frame by frame. The masked figure's movements, the angles, the timing. Then, slowly, he said, "Yes, they want my heir. Everything I've built. My empire, my family, my legacy. They want it destroyed through him." Aurora's fingers trembled. She clutched Liam closer. Her heart pounded with terror, but beneath it burned something else. Rage. Anger at the faceless enemy. Anger at Lucas for putting them both in danger. Lucas walked toward the window, eyes scanning the rain-soaked streets outside. Every instinct screamed that the threat was still nearby. Every shadow could hide a bullet. Every sound could herald the next attack. He turned abruptly to one of his men. "Secure every entrance, cameras, motion sensors, alarms, everything. I want no corner unguarded." The man nodded silently and vanished into the shadows. Aurora watched Lucas. This was the man who once walked away from her, the man who chose power over love. And yet here he was, all of him focused, lethal, protecting them. Her chest ached with something she couldn't name. Fear, admiration, conflicted hope. Liam shifted in her arms. "Mom, are we in danger?" he asked, small and uncertain. Aurora kissed the top of his head. "Not while we're here," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. The traitor wasn't done. The danger wasn't gone. Lucas returned to the monitor. He replayed the footage again, slower this time, analyzing, dissecting, memorizing every movement. The masked man's steps were too deliberate to be random, too confident. Lucas's hand tightened around the edge of the desk. "The traitor knew every protocol," he muttered. "Every blind spot, every weakness, every pattern we've used for years." Aurora's eyes widened. "Someone inside your empire?" Lucas nodded. "Yes, and they've been waiting for the right moment. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer." Liam shifted, sensing the tension. Lucas bent slightly, meeting his eyes. "You're safe with me," he said, voice firm but soft. "Nothing will touch you." Aurora swallowed, unsure if she could believe it. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to feel safe. But the thought of an enemy within their own walls made the safe house feel suddenly fragile. Lucas's gaze swept the room again. Every shadow, every corner, every darkened hallway. It was all a potential trap, Then he froze. Something subtle. A detail he hadn't noticed before. A glint of metal. A movement just outside the perimeter. He leaned closer to the monitor. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. Someone was testing them. Watching. Waiting. Aurora clutched Liam tighter. The boy's eyes mirrored her fear. Lucas turned to her, jaw tight, eyes smoldering. "They're close," he said. "Closer than I want to admit." The rain outside intensified. The night seemed alive with unseen eyes. Every whisper of wind carried threat. Lucas's fists clenched at his sides. The room was silent, but tension vibrated like electricity. Aurora's heartbeat raced with his. She realized the true danger wasn't just outside. It was in knowing betrayal could come from within. He turned to her again, voice low and commanding. "No one enters this house without my knowledge. No one touches my son. If they try, they will regret it." Aurora felt a chill run down her spine. She wanted to ask who could be trusted, but she knew the answer. Not everyone she sees is loyal. Not everyone Lucas trusts is safe. The masked figure's image lingered in her mind. The calculated precision of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The fact that Liam had been the first target. It made her stomach twist. Lucas's eyes darkened further. "Whoever did this, they're closer than we think. And if we don't find them first..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The room was silent, except for the soft beeping of the monitors. The tension pressed in from all sides. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Aurora hugged Liam, whispering, "We'll be okay." But even she knew it wasn't true. Lucas stared at the monitor one last time. A decision already forming in his mind. A plan already beginning to take shape. He turned, eyes blazing with lethal intent. "Tonight," he said, "we find out who betrayed us." A single alert flashes across the monitors. Motion detected. Not outside, not the perimeter. Inside the safe house. Lucas freezes. Aurora freezes. Liam clings tighter. And then, from the shadows, a whisper of movement. "You didn't think I'd be caught so easily, did you?" The betrayer is in the house. The room was thick with tension. The rain had slowed outside, but the storm in Lucas's mind raged, unchecked. Aurora sat on the couch, Liam sleeping in her arms. The boy's chest rose and fell softly, oblivious to the danger encroaching on their sanctuary. Lucas's phone vibrated sharply against the metal desk. A message. No sender. No trace of origin. He picked it up. The screen glared at him in the dim light of the safe house. "Finish what you started." Attached was a photo of Liam, curled in his small bed, peaceful, vulnerable. Aurora's gasp cut through the silence. Her fingers gripped the blanket tighter, as if she could shield her son from the unseen threat. Lucas didn't speak. He went still. Every muscle locked, every instinct screamed. He knew that phrase. He had heard it once, years ago. A voice etched into the darkest corners of his memory. "Finish what you started." It belonged to one man, one name that had haunted the edges of his empire. The whispers of the past he thought buried. Ethan Ward. Aurora's eyes searched his face. "Lucas, who is he?" she whispered. Lucas's jaw clenched. His hands tightened into fists. "Someone who should have died years ago," he said, voice low, lethal. "Someone I left behind, and who never forgave me." Aurora flinched, seeing a side of Lucas she had never known. A shadow of fear, a rare vulnerability. A chill ran down her spine. Why would he come after a child?" she asked, voice trembling. Lucas swallowed, feeling the weight of the truth. Because Liam was more than a child, more than a son. Liam was Lucas Hale's weakness. A weakness Ethan intended to crush. The safe house suddenly felt smaller, claustrophobic. Every wall seemed to press inward, every shadow hiding unseen eyes. Lucas's mind raced. Ethan was no ordinary enemy, a strategist, a genius with a mind designed to dismantle empires. And he had known Lucas intimately, known his tactics, known his habits, known his vulnerabilities. Aurora's hand trembled as she touched his arm. "Lucas, what do we do?" He shook his head. "This isn't just about survival," he muttered. "This is about war." Liam stirred, tiny arms reaching for Aurora, unaware of the storm outside, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. His innocence was a weapon against Lucas's stoic heart, a weapon Ethan would exploit without mercy. Lucas moved to the window. Rain-slick streets stretched below. Every shadow seemed alive, waiting. Every flicker of movement made his pulse spike. He replayed the moment again in his mind. Years ago, Ethan had been his second in command. Trusted, loyal, brilliant, until betrayal rewrote the rules of their lives. Lucas remembered the mission that went wrong. The fire, the explosion, the moment he had to leave Ethan behind to save the others. The decision had haunted him ever since. And now, Ethan was back. Not just back, but with a purpose, a vendetta, a focus on the one thing Lucas couldn't protect with power or money: his family. Aurora's voice broke through the silence again. "Lucas, he's coming for Liam." Her words trembled, but her gaze was steady. She understood the stakes. She understood the danger. Lucas nodded. "Yes," he said, tone tight. "And he's not just coming for the boy. He's coming for me." The room felt colder, every corner shadowed, every sound magnified. The faint hum of the safe house electronics became a chorus of impending threat. He turned toward Aurora, eyes blazing. "Get him ready," he said, voice hard. "Pack only what's necessary. We leave immediately if I sense movement." Aurora nodded, heart racing. She moved quietly, checking Liam. The boy stirred, murmuring in his sleep, completely unaware of the danger. Lucas returned to the monitors. He scanned every camera feed, every blind spot. No movement, no intruders. But Lucas knew better. Ethan didn't announce his moves. He struck like a shadow, silent and precise. Aurora watched him. For the first time, she saw fear on his face. Not fear for himself, fear for his son. Lucas's hand clenched around the desk. Ethan Ward had one goal: destroy Lucas where it hurt the most. And now, Liam was the key. The words of the message replayed in Lucas's mind. "Finish what you started." Not a threat, a promise. Aurora took a step closer. "Lucas, we can fight this," she said softly. Together, Lucas's gaze softened momentarily. A brief crack in the armor. "Yes," he whispered, "but it won't be easy." The air seemed to thicken. Every second stretched. Every creak of the safe house floorboard sounded like a gunshot. He turned sharply, scanning the room again. "Check the perimeter," he ordered one of his men. "Every window, every door, every shadow." Aurora's pulse raced. She felt the tension coiling like a snake around the room. Liam shifted in his sleep, murmuring. Lucas knelt, brushing hair from the boy's face. "You're safe with me," he whispered, though he knew that might not last. Aurora's hands trembled as she clutched the blanket tighter. She realized something terrifying. Ethan Ward wasn't just a threat. He was a ghost from Lucas's past, and ghosts never rest. Lucas straightened, jaw tight. The quiet hum of the monitors was suddenly deafening. He had to act. He had to anticipate Ethan's next move. He had no choice. His gaze returned to Aurora and Liam. The child's innocence was the only thing anchoring him. But even that anchor had limits. The phone buzzed again. Another message. This one simpler, more chilling. He knows. He sees. He will not stop. Aurora froze. Liam stirred in his sleep. Lucas's face drained of color. He didn't need to read further. Ethan Ward had returned from the dead, and he was coming for everything Lucas loved. Lucas's voice was low, a razor slicing through the tension. "He's here," he said, "and he knows exactly what to do to hurt me." Aurora's eyes widened. "Then we fight," she said. "Together." Lucas's jaw tightened. "Yes," he said, "but the real battle is only beginning." A shadow moves outside the safe house, silent and precise. Lucas sees it first, perched like a predator. The rain glistens off the barrel of a rifle aimed directly at Liam's room. Lucas lunges forward, just as the first shot cracks through the air. And the bullet doesn't miss this time. The safe house hummed with tension, alive with the low vibrations of machines, alarms, and the restless pacing of guards. Lucas had doubled the perimeter, tripled the security. Every window had been reinforced. Every shadow outside scanned. Every movement anticipated. Yet, in the pit of his stomach, he knew something was wrong. A predator moved unseen. Ethan Ward was not just a man. He was a ghost, a calculating force that had studied Lucas longer than Lucas had studied himself, and ghosts had a way of leaving chaos in their wake. Aurora moved quietly through the hall, her steps measured, watching Lucas with a mixture of admiration and fear. She had seen his world, the way he ruled with iron and intellect. Yet she also saw the cracks, the rare, vulnerable glimpses he allowed no one else to see. Liam, small and fragile in the dim light of the safe house, rarely spoke now. The boy's silence weighed on Lucas. He had expected curiosity, questions, laughter even. Instead, Liam watched him, cautious, careful, curiosity shadowed with fear. The child's blue eyes mirrored Lucas's own, cold, piercing, curious, yet wary, a reflection of his own upbringing, his own survival instincts shaped by a world of betrayal and blood. One night, the safe house felt particularly silent. Rain pattered softly against the reinforced windows, a rhythm both calming and haunting. Lucas sat in the study, reviewing every camera feed, every guard's patrol schedule, every possible blind spot. The monitors flickered like watchful eyes, mirroring the tension in the room. A small movement caught his attention, not outside, not in the shadows. It was inside. Liam had quietly climbed onto the chair beside him, silent, watching. The boy's eyes never left him, absorbing every movement, every subtle shift. "Mom says people get hurt near you," Liam said quietly, voice barely above a whisper. The words landed like a weight in Lucas's chest. He froze. A sharp breath caught in his throat. The truth stung sharper than any knife ever could. "Sometimes they do," he admitted, voice low, almost a confession. No bravado, no attempt to hide the burden he carried. Liam studied him. Those eyes, so familiar, so impossibly alike, pierced straight through every wall Lucas had built over the years. "Are you going to get hurt because of me?" the boy asked, innocence laced with fear. Lucas's heart clenched, a question no child should ever have to ask. And yet, it was a truth he could not evade. "I'd take every bullet before I let one touch you," he said, without hesitation. Every syllable was a vow, a promise forged from fire and blood, a promise no enemy could ever break. Aurora stood at the doorway, unseen by Lucas and Liam, her breath caught in her chest. Her resolve, built over years of independence and survival, began to crumble. She had always believed Lucas was a man to fear, a man who walked away from love and loyalty for power. But in that moment, she saw something else. a man willing to die for the son he never knew he had. The room was silent after Lucas spoke. The only sounds were the soft hum of the monitors and Liam's small, shallow breaths. Aurora stepped forward, tentative, unsure. She had so many questions, so much anger, so much love, tangled with betrayal. Lucas didn't look up. He remained focused on the monitors, on the world outside, on the threats waiting to strike. But for a fraction of a second, his posture softened. He allowed himself to feel the gravity of his son's presence beside him, the weight of the vow he had just made. Liam shifted, leaning slightly against Lucas. No words were exchanged, but the boy's trust, fragile and tentative, began to bloom. Aurora's chest tightened. She realized the truth. Lucas had changed, not entirely, not fully, but enough to become a man she had never known. A man who could be a father, a protector, a king in his own dangerous world. Yet the peace was fleeting. Lucas's instincts never allowed comfort to last. His eyes flicked constantly to the screens. Every shadow outside, every flicker of movement in the dark was catalogued, analyzed, prepared for. Aurora watched him, heart clashing with fear and admiration. She knew the storm wasn't over. She knew Ethan Ward was still out there. She knew danger was closing in. The rain outside grew heavier, pounding against the reinforced glass, drowning out the silence in the house. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in stark white, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward them. Lucas's hands hovered over the keyboard, checking every feed, every window, every door, every vent, every shadowed corner. Liam shifted again, watching him with those piercing eyes. "Mom, will he really protect me?" the boy asked, voice small but steady. Lucas turned, his gaze locking with the boy's. "I will always protect you," he said. No one will touch you without paying first." Aurora felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to argue. She wanted to demand that Lucas stop risking himself. But deep down, she knew the truth. The world Lucas had built was violent, dangerous, but he was the only shield Liam would ever have. The night stretched on, thick with tension. Every shadow, every whisper of wind, every creak of the old safe house floorboards seemed amplified. Lucas's eyes flicked between monitors and his family, calculating, anticipating, ready to strike. Liam leaned closer to him, small hand brushing Lucas's arm, a gesture that broke some of the ice Lucas had built around his heart. "You're like a king," Liam whispered, "like a king who protects his people." The words struck Lucas harder than any bullet ever could. He swallowed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him like a second skin. He had been a king of crime, of fear, of power, but now he was a king in a different sense. Protector, father, guardian. Aurora stepped closer, finally speaking. I think he sees you the way I do," she said quietly. "He trusts you. He needs you." Lucas nodded slightly, jaw tight. "I won't fail him," he said, "and I won't fail you." The storm outside mirrored the storm inside. The sense of impending threat pressed against them. Every flicker of movement outside the windows, every shadow beyond the safe house walls, reminded Lucas that Ethan Ward was still out there, watching, calculating, waiting. The monitors flickered suddenly. A shadow moved across the camera feed, something unexpected, something that hadn't been there moments before. Lucas froze. Aurora's breath caught. Liam stirred. Sensing the tension, he moved toward the monitors, eyes narrowing. The figure on the screen paused, facing the camera just long enough for a silhouette to be revealed. Lucas's hands tightened. He whispered under his breath, barely audible, "Ethan." Aurora's chest tightened with fear. She had seen the name, felt the danger, understood the stakes. Lucas's gaze hardened. Every protective instinct flared. Every plan, every strategy, every move he had ever made in his violent empire converged on that single moment. The figure moved again, closer. Not random, not reckless, deliberate. Lucas swore under his breath. "Tonight," he said, voice low, deadly. "We finish this." A distant shot rings out, not at the safe house, but at another building across the city. The bullet's trajectory, unmistakably aimed at someone Lucas loves. He spins, heart pounding, eyes blazing, realizing Ethan Ward is already inside the city. And this time, nothing will stop him from finding Liam. The safe house had never felt so hollow. A silence thicker than steel pressed against every wall, every corner. The storm outside had died down, leaving only the cold echo of distant city lights. Yet inside, a storm raged louder than thunder. Unseen, but palpable, Lucas paced the main hall. Every step measured, sharp, deliberate. The monitors glowed faintly in the dim light, but nothing moved. No shadows flickered, no motion alerts tripped, nothing. His men's radios crackled once, then died. Unusual silence, a void in communication that set Lucas's instincts ablaze. Every muscle in his body coiled, every sense screamed danger. Aurora's pulse raced as she followed him down the hall. Her hand clutched Liam's blanket, the one he had left behind when sleep had claimed him moments ago. Her stomach twisted with unease. Something wasn't right. She could feel it in her bones. "Lucas," she whispered, voice tight with apprehension. He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on Liam's room, the small door at the end of the hall. He could feel it, the absence before the presence. Aurora's heart stopped as she opened the door. The room was empty. Liam's bed, small, perfectly made, stood untouched, but vacant. No sign of struggle, no sound, no warning. Her breath hitched. The window was open. Curtains fluttered in the cool night breeze. The metal latch had been forced just enough to swing wide. Aurora's knees buckled. She sank to the floor, stomach twisting, fingers trembling. "Liam," she whispered, her voice breaking under the weight of fear. But no answer came. Lucas stepped forward, eyes scanning every corner. His heart froze in a way it never had before. Power, influence, money, guns. They had all failed him now. For the first time, he felt utterly useless. A single piece of paper lay on the floor, pristine, stark, menacing. A message scrawled in black ink. "Now we're even. E.W." Lucas's lips parted slightly. The weight of recognition settled on him like a physical blow. Ethan Ward, the man who should have died, the man who had returned, not just for revenge, but to hurt him where it hurt most. Aurora's hands trembled as she pointed to the note. Her eyes locked on Lucas, pleading, desperate. He took my son," she whispered, voice breaking. Lucas stood frozen, fists clenched, storm raging behind his blue eyes. A storm he had never learned to control fully. A storm that had always been reserved for his enemies, never for someone he loved. Never for Liam. Power meant nothing. Wealth meant nothing. All of it, empty when compared to the hollow absence of his son. He dropped to one knee beside Aurora, touching the paper lightly, as if it could hold some hidden clue. His lips moved, almost broken. "He took my son," he repeated, voice low, a whisper that carried the weight of rage and helplessness. Aurora's hands found his shirt, gripping it tightly, her nails dug into the fabric, her heart screaming. "Then you bring him back," she said, her voice sharp with desperation, her resolve fierce despite the fear consuming her. Lucas's head lifted. His eyes met hers. A razor-sharp edge cut through the terror. He drew in a steadying breath. Every nerve in his body flared with lethal intent. "I will," he said, voice low, deadly, certain. No hesitation, no doubt, a promise forged in fire and blood. He rose, towering, every inch the man who had once commanded fear and loyalty across the city. But now it was personal. Now it was beyond empire, beyond money, beyond power. This was about his blood, his son. Aurora's fingers trembled as she watched him move. Her heart raced with equal parts fear and hope. She knew the depths of the man standing before her. She knew the lengths he would go. And she knew, somewhere deep inside, that Ethan Ward had awakened a force that even he might not fully understand. Lucas moved to the monitor bank, scanning every frame again. The cameras were dead. Every feed failed. The only clue, the open window, the only trace, the message from Ethan. He tapped his fingers across the table, mind racing. Ethan was clever. Ethan was calculated. And now he had the most valuable leverage Lucas had ever known. Aurora stepped closer. "Lucas, you'll find him," she said softly. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "But he's just a child." Lucas didn't answer immediately. He leaned against the desk, eyes fixed on the empty room, imagining the small weight of Liam in her arms. Every scenario played out in his mind, every possibility, every threat. Then he spoke, his voice slicing the thick silence. "Ethan thinks he can break me through Liam," Lucas said. "But he doesn't know what it means to make me fight with nothing to lose." Aurora swallowed hard, realizing the depth of the man before her. This wasn't the Lucas she had loved or feared. This was a father, a warrior, a king defending his bloodline. Outside, the city lights flickered through the storm clouds, casting fleeting shadows across the safe house walls. Every flicker felt like a signal. Every whisper of wind carried threat. Lucas moved swiftly, checking his arsenal, the weapons hidden, the vehicles ready, every escape route mapped and prepared. He had faced countless enemies, assassins, rivals, betrayals. But this was personal. This was war on a scale that cut deeper than any rival empire ever could. Aurora stayed close, silent now, her hands still gripping the fabric of his shirt, drawing strength from him, even as fear coiled in her stomach. She had no doubts now. Lucas would bring Liam back, but she also knew the cost could be higher than any of them imagined. Lucas paused at the window, staring out into the city, the open night, the unknown streets, the predator lurking in plain sight. His blue eyes burned with determination. Every plan, every instinct, every shadow of his empire coalesced into one singular focus. Find Liam, bring him home, and end Ethan Ward. He turned, gaze locking with Aurora's. "I will bring him back," he said again, voice hard, steel under threat. "And when I do, Ethan Ward will regret every second he ever breathed." Aurora nodded, unwilling to let hope falter. Her mind raced with every memory of Lucas's ruthlessness, every hint of brilliance that had kept him alive in a world of death. If anyone could succeed, it was him. But the safe house, once a sanctuary, now felt fragile, exposed, vulnerable. Even the walls, the reinforced doors, the alarms, they couldn't protect them from the cunning of a man who had nothing left to lose. Lucas moved toward the door, weapons secured, mind focused. Aurora followed, clutching Liam's blanket, her resolve hardening. The night was alive with danger. Every shadow was a threat, every moment a countdown, and then a faint sound, almost imperceptible, a soft click, a whisper of movement from the hall outside. Lucas froze. Aurora held her breath. The weight of what they had lost and what they still could lose pressed down. he whispered, voice low and deadly. They're close. A figure emerges from the darkness outside the safe house. Not masked, not hiding. Ethan Ward. And in his grip, Liam. Alive, terrified, and only seconds away from being taken out of reach forever. The river mist clung to the abandoned warehouse like a shroud, curling around rusted beams and broken windows. Every step Lucas took toward the building echoed across the cold pavement, mingling with the faint lapping of water against the dock. His eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows for movement. Every instinct screamed danger. Aurora's heels clicked behind him, resolute, relentless. "I'm coming," she said, voice steady despite the tension in her chest. Lucas turned, jaw tight. "No!" he snapped, sharp and final. "This is my fight." Aurora didn't flinch. Her eyes burned with determination. "You're not facing this alone. Not this time." He opened his mouth to argue, but she wouldn't be stopped. She always had a way of breaking through his walls. He let out a tight sigh, resigning himself to the fact that she would follow anyway. The warehouse loomed ahead, skeletal and menacing. The windows were shattered, shadows crawling across the floor like restless spirits. Lucas moved cautiously, hand on his gun. Every corner, every beam, every stray piece of debris could conceal a threat. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the metallic tang of rust. Silence pressed against them, heavy and unnatural. Then, the faint sound of chains clinking, a soft, chilling reminder of their purpose here. Liam. Lucas's heart clenched at the sound. He moved faster, Aurora right behind him, her presence a mix of comfort and tension. They found Liam at the center of the warehouse, tied to a chair, small hands bound, eyes wide with fear. But he was unharmed. The boy's innocence glimmered, even in the dim, threatening light. Then a shadow moved, scarred, confident, lethal. Ethan Ward stepped out of the darkness, a slow smile on his face. The years had hardened him, but the fire in his eyes was unmistakable. "You left me to die, Lucas," he said, voice dripping with malice. "I wanted you to feel it." Lucas steadied his gun, muscles coiled, ready. "Leave the boy out of this," he commanded, voice low and dangerous. Ethan laughed, a sound void of humor, full of venom. "He's the perfect target," Ethan said, pacing slowly. "You killed my future, so I'll kill yours." Every instinct screamed at Lucas. Every memory of betrayal, every ghost of the past, every lost second in that failed mission years ago. It all converged in this moment. In that millisecond of distraction, Ethan fired. The bullet tore through the air. Lucas lunged, shoving Aurora aside instinctively. Pain exploded in his shoulder as the bullet found flesh. He gritted his teeth, a growl escaping, but he fired back in the same motion. Ethan's gun hand was struck, jerking backward with a sharp cry of surprise. Chaos erupted. Dust swirled around broken crates. Chains rattled. Shadows danced like predators. Aurora moved swiftly, pushing through the turmoil, reaching Liam. She wrapped her body around him, shielding him from the violence around them. The boy clung to her, eyes wide but trusting. Ethan recovered quickly, lunging for a final shot. A shot aimed directly at Liam. Lucas, bleeding and faltering, intercepted him. A brutal tackle sent both men sprawling to the ground. The gun skidded across the concrete floor. Metal clanged against metal, echoing through the empty warehouse. Aurora's hands shook as she grabbed the fallen weapon. Her breathing quick, heart pounding like a drum of war. The world seemed to slow. Every second stretched as if holding its breath with her. She aimed, fired. Ethan's body went rigid, eyes wide with shock. He crumpled to the ground, chest heaving, defeat etched in every line of his scarred face. The warehouse was silent again, save for the ragged breathing of the living. Lucas, gripping his shoulder, crawled toward them. Pain radiated through him, but adrenaline burned it away, replaced with a singular focus. His son. Aurora shielded Liam tightly, holding him close, whispering assurances he barely understood. The boy's tiny hands clutched her arms, searching for comfort in the chaos. Ethan's lips moved, whispering through blood and shock. He was never supposed to exist. Lucas's voice was low, hoarse, carrying a weight heavier than any bullet. He's the only reason I still do. Aurora looked at Lucas, realization dawning. This was more than revenge. This was survival. This was legacy. Liam, sensing the end of the danger, cautiously peered around Aurora's shoulder. His blue eyes locked with Lucas's, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them. A bond formed in fire, pain, and blood. A bond that no enemy could sever. Lucas rose slowly, supporting his wounded shoulder, every movement precise and deliberate, despite the agony. He approached Ethan, looming over him with the weight of years of betrayal and fury. Ethan coughed, blood spilling from his mouth, but his eyes still held defiance. You'll never win, he spat. Lucas's expression was lethal, cold, unwavering. Winning isn't about you anymore, he said. It's about him, my son, my blood, my life. And if you ever threaten him again. Ethan flinched. He knew the man before him was not the same one he had tried to destroy. This Lucas was a father, a protector, a storm incarnate. Aurora helped Liam to his feet, cradling him with trembling hands. The boy's small frame was warm against her chest, a living reminder of the reason they fought. Lucas turned back to Ethan, gun still in hand, voice low and deadly. This ends now. Not for me, not for you, for him. The warehouse was thick with tension. Dust swirled in the air, settling over the aftermath of violence. Broken crates, shattered glass, and spent shell casings littered the floor. Aurora's eyes met Lucas's, understanding the silent vow passing between them. They were a family now, scarred, broken, but united in a way that no enemy could unravel. Ethan coughed again, eyes glinting with anger and defeat. You think this changes anything? He rasped. Lucas's blue eyes, fierce and unwavering, cut into him. It changes everything, he said, voice low, a promise wrapped in menace. You are finished, and you will never touch him again. Aurora's hands were steady now, still gripping Liam. Her heart beat fast, but relief mixed with fear. The storm wasn't entirely over. Lucas surveyed the warehouse, calculating the next moves, aware that danger could return at any moment. But for now, Liam was safe. Liam's small voice broke the silence. Daddy? Lucas crouched, wrapping him in arms that would never let go. You're safe, he whispered, voice choked with emotion. I've got you, always. Aurora watched, tears blurring her vision. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in safety, in family, in love. The echo of Ethan's final words lingered, but Lucas's gaze never wavered. This chapter of their lives had ended, but the war was far from over. As they prepare to leave the warehouse, a faint light flickers in the shadows. Lucas turns, gun raised, heart hammering. A whisper carries across the room. You think it's over, Hale? You've only scratched the surface. And from the darkness, another figure steps forward. Someone Lucas never expected to see alive. The city streets glistened under the weight of rain, reflecting neon lights in distorted shards. Police sirens approached, echoing off brick walls, bouncing through empty alleys. The wail of authority felt like a hammer on Lucas Hale's chest. He could feel it, every second counting down toward separation, toward loss. Aurora's hand found his, squeezing it with quiet desperation. Her eyes, dark and intense, searched his. "I'm not leaving," she whispered, voice trembling but fierce. "I'm not losing you again." Lucas's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed to fight, to protect, to claim the moment. But he stepped back, a painful distance between them. "If I go with you now," he said, voice low, hoarse with emotion, "Liam grows up chased by my sins. Let me clean the path first." Aurora's breath hitched. Her voice cracked as she tried to argue. "Lucas, don't do this. Don't." He silenced her with a hand, brushing her cheek softly, eyes piercing, unwavering despite the chaos. Lucas bent, pressing a kiss to Liam's forehead. "Be better than me," he whispered, letting every ounce of hope, fear, and love in that single phrase. Liam clutched at his jacket, small fingers curling, uncertain but trusting. "You come back?" the boy asked softly, voice small and fragile. Lucas smiled faintly, pain and longing reflected in his blue eyes. "I'll find my way back, if you'll let me." Aurora swallowed, tears sliding down her cheeks. Her voice, barely audible, carried the weight of her soul. "We'll be waiting." Lucas turned, walking toward the shadows as sirens grew louder, each step heavy with the price he had to pay. He didn't look back, but he could feel their presence, Aurora and Liam, like a tether pulling him through the storm. 6 months later, the world had shifted. Lucas emerged from federal custody, the weight of chains gone, but not the memories. He had dismantled half his empire in exchange for amnesty. The streets he had once ruled now belonged to the ghosts of his past. Yet in front of him, the only world that mattered waited. Aurora stood a few feet away, a calm anchor in the chaos of his mind. Her hair glimmered in the sunlight, soft and radiant. Her eyes held patience, forgiveness, and an unwavering love that had survived storms, bullets, and betrayal. Liam stood beside her, small hands gripping hers, eyes wide with cautious hope. For months, he had waited for this moment, and now it was real. Lucas's chest tightened. Hope, fragile and dangerous, took root in his heart. He hesitated, afraid to believe it, afraid to hope. Then, like a spark igniting the darkness, Liam broke the distance, running straight toward him, fearless in his small courage. "Dad!" the boy cried, voice full of relief, joy, and innocence reclaimed. Lucas dropped to his knees, stunned, tears threatening to break free. The word hit him harder than any bullet, any betrayal. Dad. The word he had never heard. The word he had lived for, fought for, prayed for. Liam leapt into his arms, hugging him tightly. The small weight of his son pressed against Lucas's chest, a living reminder of all he had lost and all he had fought for. Aurora stepped closer, eyes soft for the first time in years, the steel in her gaze melting into warmth. "You ready to start over?" she asked gently, voice carrying the hope of a life they could reclaim. Lucas breathed deeply, a mixture of relief, fear, and love flooding through him. "With you?" His voice trembled, raw and real. "Always." The past hadn't vanished. The danger wasn't gone. But the chains of regret, of separation, of fear, they were loosening. He had survived the darkness. He had reclaimed his son. He had earned Aurora's trust again. Liam pressed his small face against Lucas's shoulder. "Never leave me again, Dad," he whispered. Lucas kissed the top of his head, eyes scanning the horizon, the city alive with possibilities and unseen threats. "I promise," he murmured, a vow heavier than any empire, stronger than any weapon. Aurora slipped her hand into his, the small, quiet gesture sealing the unspoken agreement between them. Together, they were stronger. Together, they were unbreakable. The city around them buzzed with life, oblivious to the battles fought and the wars survived. Rain still dripped from the rooftops, washing the streets clean, mirroring the sense of renewal washing over their lives. Lucas looked down at Liam, then at Aurora. A new chapter was beginning, one with laughter, protection, and love, forged from the ashes of betrayal and blood. They walked forward together, Liam nestled safely between them, the first steps of a family rebuilt, every heartbeat a reminder that survival, redemption, and love were not just words. They were their reality. Yet, as Lucas scanned the city from the street corner, shadows moved where they shouldn't. A faint whisper of movement in the alley, almost imperceptible. Lucas's instincts flared. Even free, even reunited, the world was never truly safe. Enemies never disappeared. They waited. And some secrets never stayed buried. He pressed a finger to Liam's back, protective, sensing danger, ready to fight once more if needed. Aurora followed his gaze, feeling the tension coil in the air, but she squeezed his hand, a silent reminder. They were together, and that made them unstoppable. And in the distance, hidden in the shadows, a lone figure watched, eyes gleaming with intent. A warning unspoken, a threat yet unseen. Lucas's blue eyes narrowed. Even as a father, even as a man ready to rebuild his life, he knew the war was never truly over. A faint gust of wind carried a whisper across the street. "Hale, your family is precious, but some debts never die." Lucas tightened his jaw. Aurora's grip on his hand was steady. Liam nestled closer. They had survived the darkness, but a shadow lingered, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The story ends here, for now, but the city, the empire, and their enemies are never truly finished.